Wake up, America. The truth they don't want you to see. Listen up, patriots. What I'm about to expose will shake you to your core. While the mainstream media obsesses over the surface-level details of the Idaho murders case, they are deliberately ignoring the real story buried in these court documents. And I'm not going to let them get away with it. This is KASH Patel. And I'm calling on every single American who cares about justice, transparency, and holding the system accountable to pay attention right now. For too long, we've watched as the powers that be manipulate the narrative, hide critical information, and protect their own interests while everyday Americans are left in the dark. But not today, not on my watch. Today, we're going to follow the money, expose the contradictions, and ask the hard questions that nobody else has the courage to ask. Share this investigation. Demand answers. Don't let them bury the truth. The Bryan Kohberger case isn't just about 4 innocent lives taken too soon, though make no mistake, those victims and their families deserve justice. This case has become a window into how our legal system operates when the cameras are rolling, how prosecutors maneuver behind closed doors, and how the lines between justice and financial opportunism become dangerously blurred. What you're about to read comes directly from court filings dated October 24th, 2025. These aren't conspiracy theories. These aren't anonymous sources. This is documented evidence filed under oath that raises serious questions about what's really happening in this case. In fact, it's because they deserve real justice that we must examine every aspect of this case with unflinching scrutiny. So buckle up. We're going deep into the financial maze of this case, and what we find there might surprise you. Let's dissect the paperwork. On the surface, the plea agreement seems straightforward. Bryan Kohberger pleads guilty, avoids the death penalty, and is ordered to pay over $250,000 in criminal fines and an additional $80,000 in civil judgments to the 4 families. Standard procedure. But here is where the corruption starts to reveal itself. The Latah County Prosecutor's Office is not satisfied with this number. They are demanding an additional roughly $27,000 for the parents of Kaylee Goncalves and Madison Mogan. And what are these thousands of dollars for? They are for travel and accommodation expenses, hotel rooms, flights to attend court. Stop and think about this for a moment. We have a man who will spend his life in a concrete box, yet the prosecution is fighting tooth and nail for him to pay for the victim family's travel. Now, here's the bombshell that the mainstream media is absolutely burying. The families already received extensive funding, well over $250,000, through massive GoFundMe campaigns. Campaigns that were explicitly raised to cover these exact expenses: travel, lodging, and court-related costs. So the million-dollar question, the question they pray I won't ask, is this: if generous Americans already opened their wallets specifically for these travel and court costs, why is the prosecution now demanding that Kohberger pay for those same exact expenses? This is not justice. This is not restitution. This is prosecutorial overreach, attempting a financial double dip on the back of tragedy and public generosity. They want the GoFundMe money and they want the restitution money. They are redefining economic loss to maximize their claim, and I am putting them on notice right now. The American people are watching. Let's talk about the defense's argument, which is sound. If the families were compensated for expenses by charity, there is no economic loss for Kohberger to compensate. It's simple math. But the prosecutors are masters of the legal loophole. They are hiding behind an old Idaho Supreme Court case, State versus Cheney, which claims charitable donations do not count as restitution payments. Let me translate the deep state's legal theory for you. The prosecution argues that GoFundMe donations came from voluntary generosity, not from a legal obligation. They are saying because some kind-hearted American stranger in Texas had no contractual duty to help, that stranger's $100 donation is simply irrelevant to Kohberger's debt. Read that again. Because good people acted voluntarily, the criminals should still be forced to pay the full amount. Does that sound like justice to you? Does it sound like fairness? Or does it sound like a system that actively punishes community support by treating it as meaningless? This isn't just about an obscure law. This is about common sense. If I use GoFundMe money to fix my car after an accident, the financial loss is zero. Yet, these prosecutors are arguing that the person who hit me still owes me the full amount, even though my car is fixed and I'm holding the cash. They claim they are trying to make the victims whole. But if the victims have already been made whole by the community, aren't we going past whole and straight into a financial windfall? I'm not accusing grieving families of greed. They are victims of a monstrous crime. I'm accusing prosecutors of overreaching. They are manipulating the restitution system to serve an agenda that goes far beyond simple compensation. They are establishing a dangerous legal precedent, and we cannot let them get away with it. Let's cut through the legal theatrics and address the true absurdity at the heart of this dispute. Brian Kohberger is sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences. He will die in prison. He will never hold a job, earn a paycheck, or generate any honest wealth. So why the relentless fight over an extra $27,000 for travel? Because the prosecution is playing a different, much longer game. The defense raised the obvious, logical question: what is Kohberger's realistic ability to pay tens of thousands of dollars when he is locked up for life? The prosecution's response is chilling. They acknowledge he can't pay now, but then they let their true strategy slip. They mention that Kohberger has a history of receiving financial compensation from family and third parties. Now we are finally getting somewhere. The prosecution reveals they are monitoring every financial transaction that flows to Kohberger. They are tracking his commissary account. They are building a case. They even attached an exhibit that summarizes his jail deposits to prove that because he received money in the past, he might receive more in the future. This is the creation of a financial surveillance state. They are laying the legal groundwork to place a permanent financial lien on this man's life. They explicitly state their goal. They are worried Kohberger might try to profit from his notoriety through a book deal, a documentary, or other media appearances. They are using this inflated restitution amount to create a massive civil judgment that can be enforced indefinitely under Idaho's version of the Son of Sam law. The prosecution is saying, we don't know if he will ever make a dime, but just in case, we want a permanent, legally binding claim to seize every single future dollar he touches. While I agree a monster should never profit from his crimes, this maneuver goes too far. They are using the prospect of potential future income to inflate and justify payments that have already been covered by charitable Americans. This isn't about compensation. This is about creating maximum permanent financial liability. This financial maneuvering by the prosecution isn't just about money, it's about setting a dangerous, far-reaching precedent that undermines core principles of due process. We must look at the documents that are missing. Throughout these proceedings, the prosecution reference critical evidence that is not available for public review. I'm talking about States Exhibit 1, 2, and 3. Exhibit 1, itemization of the specific expenses the victim families are claiming. Exhibit 2, the detailed itemization of funeral expenses. Exhibit 3, the summary of every financial contribution made to Kohberger's jail account. The prosecution is asking the court to impose thousands of dollars in financial obligations on an individual, even a convicted murderer, based on evidence that the public and even other parties in the legal system cannot see. Why are these critical exhibits sealed or simply not made public? If the prosecution is going to argue that the Goncalves family spent X amount on travel, shouldn't we be able to see the receipts? If they claim Kohberger has a history of receiving money, shouldn't we see the ledger of who sent him how much and when? This is basic, bedrock transparency. When the government seeks to impose financial punishment, the public has an absolute right to see the evidence supporting those calculations. When prosecutors make public arguments based on sealed evidence, it creates a justice system that operates in the shadows. We are moving from a system of open court arguments to one of trust us, the evidence is there. That is a tactic of the deep state, and it has no place in a free society. We are watching prosecutors not only try to double dip on charitable donations, but also trying to set up a permanent financial surveillance state, all while hiding the The key figures. That's not accountability, that is institutional arrogance. Let's zoom out one final time to clarify what legitimate justice looks like versus what this financial engineering scheme is attempting. I have zero issue with Koberger being ordered to pay for the funeral expenses. That is the very definition of restitution. The families had to bury their children, a direct quantifiable economic loss caused by the crime. That is what the plea agreement should have secured. But everything beyond that, specifically the demand for travel and accommodation expenses that were already covered by generous community fundraising, moves us past compensation and into a windfall. The law states that restitution is to make the victim whole. It is not designed to create a profit center on the backs of charitable Americans. The defense's argument is sound. They are seeking double recovery. The prosecution knows it. Yet, they are hanging their entire argument on a loophole, not on moral reality. They are attempting to set a powerful precedent that says we will maximize financial damage to the defendant regardless of whether the victims have already been made whole. This case is a wake-up call. It shows you the deep state is not just in Washington. It operates in every county courthouse where ambitious prosecutors prioritize high-dollar civil judgments over simple klichtitser what is hers shiakig iandain instoim olchastindings. My commitment is clear. I will continue to scrutinize every document filed in this and every other high-profile case. We must demand that our judicial system operate with transparency and uphold common sense. Justice must be based on facts, not on emotional manipulation and financial opportunism. I believe the court must reject this demand for double compensation. The families deserve justice, but that justice must not come at the expense of legal integrity.